Why don't we start with your your role with Tasveer? What do you do at the festival?
Yeah, so I'm the programming director, which means I'm overseeing the curation of the festival as well as the Film Fund, which is the other program that Tasveer runs. Those are my dual responsibilities, the two hats.
And how did you end up getting involved with Tasveer?
Good question. Rita reached out to me last year. She wanted to put a film on my radar. It was a film that I'd love to share with you, actually, if you haven't seen it already, called Coming Out with the Help of a Time Machine. I'll send you a link.
I have not heard of that one yet. So yeah, I'd love to look into it.
Yeah, so it's a short film. It was actually the reason Rita wanted to make me aware of it is because it was the very first film that won the Tasveer Film Fund. So the inaugural year of the fund, this was the winning film. The filmmaker just pitched this really charming story, and Rita was won over and put all the funds behind it, and it turned out really well. So she sent me a link last year, and I was programming for the Tribeca Film Festival, and I thought we really need to play this.
Very cool.
So yeah, it worked out really well. We had an amazing screening. We did a queer shorts program at the festival, which is actually the first time that's happened at Tribeca. And that film is you need to bring a box of tissues. So it was an emotional roller coaster of a program. There's laughs, but there's also tears and there's romance. So that film really impacted everybody, and it was a full house. And I got so many notes afterwards from people who said that they were really moved by it.
That's really awesome. Yes, I'm looking forward to watching that at some point. I am interested in hearing more about your experience with programming. I mean, having been a part of Tribeca Film Festival, which I've covered remotely over the past couple years, and how that experience has transferred over to your experience with Tasveer.
Yeah, well, I've been programming festivals for about 10 years. I was before that I was a film producer, and I was actually kind of frustrated with the limitations of what that role meant, because I didn't get to say what got financed, right? I just got to produce whatever was greenlit. And so that was a lot of very straight white male movies.
Right.
And so I was looking for another way to have an impact on what stories get a platform. And so I was already aware of a festival called OutFest in Los Angeles. I'd volunteered with them in a couple of different capacities, and I ended up becoming their director of programming. So that was my pivot from producing to festival programming. I was with them for 4 years, and then Tribeca hired me, so I moved to the East Coast, and I was with Tribeca for 4 years, and I feel like festival programming is I don't think that programmers should stay too long at each organization, because your kind of circle of contacts and filmmakers influence what's being played, right? And if you stay too long, then you're keeping out the people that you don't have access to. So I feel like everyone should have a finite term. 4 or 5 years is good, and then move on to the next place. And then someone else can come in and make sure that, any blind spots you have can be covered, any gaps can be filled. And that way you're really serving the community as you should. Sometimes you see, sorry, so I just
no, you're good.
Sometimes
Keep going.
You see directors of programming in those jobs for 10, 20 years, and you're like, oh, there's a generation of filmmakers who've been blocked from playing your festival,
I see. That's actually some really good insight. I guess I never thought about it that way, but I think that that does really help with diversifying not only your contacts, but what, the types of films that are chosen per festival, and you can take those
Mhm.
experiences with you wherever you go, and help that inform how you're programming. That's really cool to know.
Yeah. So
Let's
I'm
talk.
happy to be in a South Asian film festival context now, because I haven't done that before. I've done a queer festival, done a
Mhm.
mainstream festival. This is my first South Asian
That's
festival.
so cool. You just have this really diverse career background with the types of festivals that you're a part of, and I absolutely admire that. That's really awesome. Let's talk about Tasveer. Tell me a little bit about the programming at Tasveer. What's playing, and what are some things that people can look forward to at the fest this year?
Yeah, let's see. Where do I start? So,
Let's start
um,
with the opening night film.
opening night, yes. So, For Samosas is a film that world premiered at Tribeca this summer,
Hmm.
and will be released by IFC Films at the end of the year. So, it's getting a wide release, but folks in Seattle at Tasveer will be able to see it before the wide release. So it's a nice opportunity to share it in like a kind of family context, if you will. It's going to feel like a really warm, appreciative crowd, and it's a really fun film. It's an upbeat like satire essentially. So it's kind of getting the festival started on the right foot.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a great one. I unfortunately missed it at Tribeca, but I'm really happy that it's coming to the Seattle area so that I can actually see it in a theater. That's
Yes,
really
and
cool.
the cast will be there, so I'm certain that everyone's going to leave smiling. It's going to
Yeah,
be a really good night.
that's really awesome. Really cool. And then the centerpiece film.
Yeah, so we have Goldfish, which is the centerpiece. It's a drama with two well-known stars for the community, Kalki Coughlin and Dipti Naval. Dipti has been in an endless list of films over her career, and so this is her playing an elder, and it's about her estranged daughter, adult daughter, coming back to reconnect with her. And I have like a really kind of unique connection to this because the plot kind of mirrors my own life, what happened to me just this past year. It's about a woman going back to visit her mom and realizing that she's struggling with dementia, and so she has to
Mm-hmm.
figure out what happens now. Can we do this together? Do I need to bring in help? Do I need to find somewhere else for you to live? All of these big tough questions. So it's it's a deep film. It's beautifully cast. Every single character in the film is really just feels really authentic in delivering their all. And so it's a beautiful ensemble beyond even these two lead actors. So both of them will be there in person. It's a British film, so the team is coming from a long way away to be there for this night. So we're gonna we're gonna really make it a special one. And after the screening, of course, there'll be a Q&A, and then we're all going to go to dinner with the actors and the producers. So there'll be I think 100-person dinner event for those who want to join. So I haven't done that before at a festival. I feel like usually I'm running from one event to the other, and Tasveer is different in that there's only one thing happening at a time. So you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to make tough decisions of what am I going to do in this slot. There's only one thing happening, and then everyone goes to, you know, enjoy the rest of the evening together, and that feels like it's going to be special.
There's something special about that. I mean, I've covered enough film festivals to know that dilemma of like, oh, I have this finite amount of time. There's like 5 movies playing at that same time, and which ones do I get to, and which ones, do I hold off on? How do I manage my time? Yeah, talk a little bit more about that structure of Tasveer, where it is just kind of one day dedicated to kind of each event that's going on.
Well, I think that's Rita's vision for the festival. This is the 20th year of the organization. It's the 17th edition of the festival. And so she knows her audience. She knows what she wants to bring to Seattle, and how best to kind of connect everybody. And so, yeah, I guess she feels like one event at a time is easier to manage logistically with our small staff, but it's also it's a way to make sure that we're concentrating the audience where they need to be. We're not distracting them with 100 options at a time.
That's true. And I certainly appreciate that, especially yeah, having I recently covered the Vancouver Film Festival, and so I was up in your direction a few weeks ago, and so that was a
that
lot
was
of
an
fun.
insane number of films. There was too many
Yes. It can certainly feel that way sometimes, for sure, but yeah, that's why it's really cool to have these more local film festivals be able to appeal to niche audiences. I guess that that does bring me to the topic of diversity in film. You've kind of touched on it before, especially with your background in the types of film festivals that you've been a part of. Can you speak a little bit more about what it means to bring diversity to Tasveer, the Tasveer Film Festival, and what that means for the Seattle-based audience? Because I'm so interested in Tasveer's impact on the Seattle area.
Yeah, there's a lot to dig into there. Where do I start? Well, first, I think I would love to encourage you, since you go to a lot of festivals, at some point in the near future, try and see a film at the same film at different festivals, and experience the different vibe that you get. So I remember seeing a film, for example, at the Berlin Film Festival, and then a few months later going to see it at the LA Asian Film Festival. And just the difference at an identity-based festival of being in a room with everyone that feels like family, everyone's kind of responding to the nuance in a way that wasn't happening in the mostly white, let's be real, theater that I was at before. And so it just feels like everyone's laughing in the right places and appreciating the subtleties. And that's true also when you watch a queer film in a mainstream space versus at a queer festival. So it's a lot of fun to do that. I definitely encourage you, if you have the opportunity to see a film twice, like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can totally see that, because it's nice to have these more focused film festivals be able to reach out and like endorse these communities that they're representing, but on top of that, being able to invite people from outside of that culture into these spaces and be able to feel that energy. I that's probably what I'm looking forward to most with being able to attend Tasveer, and I feel so fortunate that a festival like this is in Seattle. It's so accessible for me.
Yeah, it's really special. I think you know, you use the diversity word, and it's a festival that tackles diversity in a very different way than I'm used to, because what we're talking about is diversity across the South Asian experience, right? And understanding like the range of experiences that all of us who hold this identity experience, like the different, basically, like as we look at the lineup right now, it's 102 films, 15 languages, 17 countries. So there is no one South Asian experience. It's not a monolith. It's there's so much to experience at the festival that really puts all that in kind of perspective. I think the wealth of stories, the nuance and the dimension is really important for me to show. Usually at every other festival I've worked, there'll maybe be like 2 slots if I'm lucky for a South Asian film, and usually those will both be from India, just because
Right.
the volume of content. And so I haven't really been able to support work that I've wanted to. Like, I've fallen in love with films, and everyone's agreed, yeah, like they're really great. But then they say, but who's going to come and see them? And we can't have more than two. It's just too much of a risk. And this word risk is thrown around a lot when it comes to BIPOC programming and queer programming at mainstream festivals. And it's not true. People do show up. You just, maybe what you're saying is you don't know how to reach that audience. And that's a different thing.
I really like how you put that, because there's definitely a difference between those two concepts. And I really do think it's about outreach and the awareness of these kinds of stories, which, you know, no matter what culture it comes from, stories kind of transcend and can be relatable to everyone. This is just the, you know, the South Asian versions of these stories that, you know, we get to experience, and then yeah, and learn from and understand. But it's about the awareness and being able to reach those communities, and yeah, and yeah, I think that's really cool. That's a really good perspective there.
I think that the Asian Americans, I've read somewhere that it's the fastest growing population in the US, but it doesn't seem that way when you look at TV shows, or, you know, what's playing at the movie theater. Right. You always see South Asian characters as like the modern minority, or the foreigner, the accented foreigner, and that, yeah, that really bothers me. So it was a pleasure to be able to play this many films where no one is the same. Every single perspective is different.
That's so cool. Let's talk a little bit more about the festival and the structure of it, which this year it is a hybrid festival. Tell me about programming a hybrid festival and what that's like.
Oh, yes. Well, something that Rita's done really well is figured out how to attract an online audience from all over the world. And so then it just becomes a matter of finding the films that are willing to make themselves available to view. Some of the films are, you know, geo-blocked to Washington State. Some are US only. Some don't have any limitations. They say the more the merrier. We want as many views as possible. So it's sort of a matter of customizing for every single film around their comfort levels and around their team's needs and restrictions. If they already have a distributor on board, usually they're quite cautious about committing. But when we say you can cap to a certain number of watches, you can, yeah, all these specifics. So it takes a lot of time, but it's worth it. And then the in-person screenings, I'm really looking forward in particular to the shorts programs. Cool. So we have an LGBTQ program. We have a female-focused program called the Female Gaze, which shows sort of milestone moments and pivotal life lessons from the female perspective. There's a diaspora program, so all sort of fish out of water stories, if you will. And then there was a lot of really great work from Nepal this year. So there's a program specifically about Nepali films. So there's so much. That's just a taste. There's more than that.
That's so fantastic. Awesome. So we're going to get to this festival, and I'm confident it's going to be a fantastic year for the festival, and I'm looking forward to being a part of it. But if it's not too looking too far ahead, what do you hope that this festival accomplishes going forward? What are kind of the goals and objectives of Tasveer as it continues to grow and find an audience?
Good question. I think when I hear that question, I think about like all festivals, really, not just Tasveer. I think about how all festivals and all annual events really are having to find ways to appeal to new attendees and perhaps, should we say, younger attendees, while also staying relevant to the loyal patrons who come every year. So that's sort of the reality of every event-based organization. But I think this festival it's focused on showing the best South Asian cinema of the year, but it's not just for South Asians. It's anyone can attend. The audience will be mixed, you'll see. And this year it feels like a moment of growth because it's back in person as well as the online portion. So it feels like a milestone. It's also the third year of the Film Fund. Every year the Film Fund has the amount of the grants that are given has grown. So for the future, I would like to see that continue to grow, because the independent film scene, there's no funding for these stories. It's everyone's kind of pitted against each other, and there's just not a lot of resources out there. So I'd like for Netflix and the other backers to really, step up and put their money where their mouth is, and be able to fully fund these films, not just put a portion of financing towards them. And that way Tasveer can really be acknowledged and celebrated for the impact that it's having on the community.
Absolutely. And I strongly hope that fund continues to grow, and that you do reach that goal of being able to fully fund projects with the fund. That would be amazing.
Fingers crossed.
Well, I want to go ahead and wrap up. But is there any last thoughts that you want anyone interested in Tasveer to know about the festival, or any particular message that you want to get out to those who might be interested in attending?
There's a lot of really interesting panels happening, both online and in person. So I'd love to just give an overview of those, if that's all right.
Absolutely, go for it. Yes. So
we have the industry panels kick off with a panel with festival programmers. So some South Asian members of the Programmers of Color Collective are coming together to talk about the ethics and accountability that they deal with in festival programming, and also what filmmakers want to hear is like how they can successfully navigate the festival circuit. So it'll be a little bit of both, what programmers want to talk about and what filmmakers want to hear about. We're going to do a conversation about decolonizing sexuality. And I really wanted to do this because I was seeing such a vast range in the treatment of LGBTQ stories when they were coming from diaspora filmmakers versus filmmakers who are based in South Asian countries. Really different attitudes and different, just coming from different places. And so right. I was very careful to only, we as a team were very careful to only select queer films that didn't use shame or any kind of sort of negative tropes or unhappy endings. Those were not part of the program. So I'm interested in hearing these filmmakers come together from their various countries around the world and interact and learn from each other. Yeah. There's a fascinating conversation happening led by one of our guest programmers, Aisha Jamal. She's going to be talking about political oppression in film. So that panel is called Speaking Truth to Power, and it's about censorship and surveillance in film, which is a very real topic right now in India specifically. That's just a little taste. There's more. But
there is more. I'll be sure when I publish this, I'll be sure to link the website so that everyone can find the full schedule and the full list of events to attend and participate with. Again, I am really excited for the festival this year, and I'm looking forward to being a part of it. And I appreciate you for taking the time to talk with me a little bit about it. I can't wait to share our conversation.
Yeah, I can't wait to see you at the festival. Thank you so much for asking such great questions.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks.